guys, and welcome to today's Los Blancos podcast. Today we will be discussing Manchester City game, and I am on my own today, unfortunately, but I've got plenty of analysis for you guys coming into this big game for this season at the Bernabeu, first leg, and it's going to be the biggest game of the season for us because what happens here at the Bernabeu is going to, ultimately see that's going to determine what happens at the Etihad and what we do for the rest of the season, because it looks like La Liga is pretty much wrapped up. And it's going to be a tough game because at Manchester City, we know we've seen them be a tough side over these last few years. But I have faith that this is a different Real Madrid team from last year. This is a better Real Madrid team from last year. And this Manchester City team is not as good as last year. So that's my hope from what I can tell. From what I can tell, that we can beat Manchester City. So it's going to be a tough game, and I think we should start with Manchester City. Let's talk about them because I'm recording on the Saturday, so this is a couple of days before the match. It's just because of me, but earlier today, Manchester City did beat Crystal Palace 4-2. It was a very good game for Manchester City. They went down early, but they reclaimed the lead and they won pretty comfortably in the end. And then midweek they beat Aston Villa really comfortably 4-1 in that game. Foden was sensational, and it's been the story of this season from Manchester City, where they've had a lot of these big wins, but they've also had some poor results as well. Because if we look at last week against Arsenal, I wouldn't say they struggled, because Arsenal didn't really pose them a threat, but they didn't do much in this game, and it was quite an uneventful game in the 0-0 between Arsenal. And then Liverpool as well. The Liverpool game, we'll talk about that later, but that was a real that was really convincing for me. They played Manchester United a couple of weeks ago, if you remember, and they weren't very convincing in that one. And so you look at Manchester City, and there is a lot of weaknesses for this Manchester City team that maybe they didn't have last year. Let's start with the players that are likely to start for Manchester City. In goal, it's going to be Stefan Ortega. I think Edison's going to be injured for this game, which I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing necessarily, because Ortega's a good goalkeeper. I think he's a solid goalkeeper, and I think he's definitely trustworthy. It's not like they're dropping down into and putting me in goal or something. They're putting a capable goalkeeper in goal, and I think that's not going to be too bad for them. Right back now, there's a lot of questions about Kyle Walker's fitness. Pep's been playing plenty of mind games for this game about Kyle Walker's fitness. I do have a feeling that Kyle Walker will be fit for this game, which is really annoying because we know how good Kyle Walker is at those one-on-one battles. At centre-back, I would assume, this is very, 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 this isn't based on much, but I would assume that Ruben Diaz and John Stones start together with Gvardiol at left-back, but we don't know whether Gvardiol starts or Akanji starts, or whether Nathan Ake is fit for this game as well. So there's plenty of question marks for this game at the back. I don't think it changes much. I think Akanji is definitely more physically imposing, more quicker. He's quicker and he's more capable of playing against these guys. But that's not to say Ruben Diaz won't play, because Ruben Diaz is a fantastic defender, and it's not to say John Stones won't play, because John Stones played magnificently against us last year. Why wouldn't he play this time? So plenty of question marks on our part in the defence as well, but we don't know what Manchester City will do. Then in the midfield, I think it's going to be a tough question there. We don't know what's going to happen in the midfield largely. The big difference from this season and last year, no Gundogan, so that presence, in the midfield, just outside the box, controlling things, won't be there. That guy. It's not going to be there, which that's huge for us. I'm really pleased about that. He's not there, which that would be fantastic for us. If I was to make a guess, I would say that the midfield three consists of Rodrygo, De Bruyne, and Bernardo Silva. It's not going to be a rigid midfield three, because Foden's going to be rotating inwards, and I would assume that the front three would be Foden, Haaland and Grealish. Now, I think Julian Alvarez won't start this game, but he definitely could. I'm definitely more wary of Grealish than I am of Alvarez, although Grealish isn't as much of a goal scorer, as much of a threat in front of goal as Alvarez is. I think his one-on-one abilities will definitely cause us more of a problem. And we talk about Phil Foden because he's been on excellent form recently. It's the first time I've seen him put in these type of performances in for Manchester City at the end of the day, and I think he's been excellent. Through a hat trick against Aston Villa was excellent in that game, and I think that he could be a huge problem, especially if we focus on Haaland and De Bruyne, as most teams probably would. I think he would be a difficult choice to leave available for Manchester City to go to. So it's going to be a difficult game for that. In terms of that, I mean, it's something I'm really nervous about how Phil Foden will play. But he's also shown in previous games, previous tournaments that maybe Phil Foden doesn't step up in big games. I wouldn't count on it. I definitely wouldn't, because Pep Guardiola, he knows how to work these players, knows how to take the pressure out of the game. So I think Phil Foden probably will step up. But it's not to say that he has stepped up in these last few in previous ties. So it's a question mark on that front. I think we talk about De Bruyne many times. He's always caused us problems individually. I think he's obviously going to be a problem. We're going to have to find a way to try and negate his presence in this team. If you want to stop Haaland, you want to stop the source, and that is mostly De Bruyne. I think a man-mark job would be required, whether he drifts onto the right wing. We'll see if Camavinga can track him, if he drifts on the left. We see if Fede can track him. All these type of things where you just want to keep him locked down somewhere, and you want to keep him largely quiet, which teams have been able to do. Arsenal were able to keep him quiet, Liverpool were able to keep him quiet, and he hasn't been as impactful in these big games as he perhaps should be, according to his quality and we know how good De Bruyne is. And then you look at Haaland, we know we can stop Haaland. Teams have stopped Haaland this year, and it's not the fact that Haaland has got worse chances, or he's got particularly he hasn't been given worse chances, but this season it's just his finishing's gone back to the mean. It's gone back to a regular standard, and so he's not scoring every single half chance that comes his way, and so people are starting to criticise him, people are starting to get on him. But I still think he's a huge threat, because even if he isn't scoring one every game, two every game, he's still going to be a huge threat. He's still going to cause us problems, and with his presence as well, you're going to have to most of the time put two men on him, or focus, or keep an eye on him with two men, and that's going to be a huge problem, because City can definitely cause problems. Obviously, he's not as good as with the ball at his feet, but that's not really the requirement from him, and so I would be a bit nervous about that as well, coming into this game with Haaland. So I mean, we know what Manchester City like to do. They like to get these 1v1 battles this season, and largely in most games it has worked, but there's been some sort of inconsistency which we haven't seen from Manchester City in a long while. We haven't seen the Manchester City side with and certainly the last time we saw this was Pep's first season at Manchester City, where or maybe that season where Liverpool won the league, where Manchester City aren't as dominant, aren't as consistent as they are, and they still have a chance to win the league, and that's going to be huge for us, because their focus is not only on us, which it was last year. Last year, you could tell that Manchester City were going into second gear, and they were just going to wrap that league title up by the time they were going to play us, and so we have to be wary about that. This is definitely a Manchester City team who have to focus on the Premier League a little bit more, because they are not favourites this year. I think Liverpool probably are favourites going into these final stretches of the season, final 8 games for them, or final 7 for them, and that's going to be a huge focus point for them. Coming into this game, they're going to have to focus on future games. They can't just focus on Real Madrid and Real Madrid only. and so that's gonna be something to look out for. Whereas us, we have, we haven't racked the league title up, but we have got a comfortable lead at the top of La Liga, ahead of Barcelona. Something that I don't think Barcelona can chip out very very quickly. So that's going to be very very intriguing to see how that plays out. Whether the fitness levels look alright. I think Pep's always got the fitness levels fine, so I don't think that's going to be a huge problem. So if I was to guess Manchester City's starting lineup, I would go for goalkeeper Stefan Ortega, like I said before. Right back, like I said, my guess would be that Kyle Walker plays this game at right back. But if he doesn't, I think John Stones can quickly shift, or Akanji then shift to the right back, or Rico Lewis plays. But I don't think Pep will put Rico Lewis in a game of this magnitude. So I'm gonna say Akanji plays, and then Ruben Diaz, John Stones, Gvardiol, 4 centre backs is criminal. I still don't like that idea. Then the midfield, I think it would be Rodri, De Bruyne, Bernardo Silva, and then the front three of Phil Foden, Erling Haaland, and Jack Grealish. And I think we zoom in on one thing. I think the absence of Gundogan makes it huge for us. I think his presence is just so big for Manchester City, and the fact is that he hasn't had them this year, and it just doesn't look the same. They don't look as dominant. They can't keep control of the ball like they did before, and that's gonna be huge for us. He caused a lot of problems last year with his pressing and his vertical, the way he gets forward, and his direction of pass, all that stuff. He looked really good last year. He continued that with Barcelona this year, to be fair to him, and he's been really good for Barcelona. But that's going to be huge for us. No, Gundogan is going to be huge for us, and I think that's a huge addition. So let's talk about Real Madrid, because it's been a long time since Real Madrid played. Last week we had a lovely win against Athletic Club. We were really good, and I thought Rodrygo in particular was fantastic. He got those 2 goals, which are really well taken, and that's perfect coming into this game. But the big stories is the fact that Real Madrid have 4 players that are on the verge of suspension. We've got Tchouaméni on the verge of suspension, Camavinga, Vinicius Junior, and Jude Bellingham all on the verge of suspension, and that is something we're gonna have to be careful of. Vini, I think, is easily preventable. Just make sure he doesn't go starting arguing to the ref for no reason, start pushing Kyle Walker or something. Just make sure he doesn't he doesn't play with those emotions. Just play the game, and just make sure that he stayed well away from any rough challenges. Try and make sure that he doesn't start arguing to the ref, because that could be a huge problem. Jude Bellingham, I really need him next leg. He's the most important player, most important piece for us to have at the Etihad. So I just need Jude Bellingham to stay and not get a suspension. Camavinga is very likely that I think Camavinga gets a booking in this game. I think Camavinga's just very well used to, and unfortunately the refs give Camavinga reds, not yet reds, but yellows as bookings for anything, and I think that could be a huge problem for us to have in this game. Aurelien Tchouaméni, I think Tchouaméni can keep his emotions down, but I think if he's playing centre back, that could be a different story. You're gonna have to keep Haaland on lock, and sometimes with Haaland dragging away, and you need to take him down there, you're gonna have to tank the booking. But we saw last year what happened when Tchouaméni was not there, how many problems it caused, and it just we've just got to hope that Tchouaméni does not get booked for the second leg. So yeah, I think that could be a huge problem for us going into this game. But let's talk about the Real Madrid starting lineup. Goalkeeper Andrew Lunin. I think Lunin is a big old game for Andrew Lunin. You've got to step up. Especially with the way Courtois stepped up last year, where without him it would have probably been 7 or 8. And I think Andrew Lunin could have a big night on the cards. Carlos going to have plenty of shots. They're all going to take a couple of pops at it. You're going to have to be wary whether Rodri takes a couple of shots or not. And yeah, that's going to be huge for decisive point for us, whether Lunin has a big game, and I trust him. I trust Andrew Lunin, especially on the performances he's had this year. We've just got to make sure that we lower the volume of shots that heads his way. And I think then it's up to him whether he wants to save most of these shots or not. So let's hope that happens. Right back, Dani Carvajal. I think Carvajal he's been a bit dodgy over the last few weeks, but I still trust him. I still trust him to turn up for the big games. I think this could be a game where he could be big. Coming up against Jack Grealish, you that could go either way. You need him to step it up and make sure that Jack Grealish is locked down. And then centre backs. This is the big question. I don't think Militao's going to play centre back. I don't think he's going to play a minute of this game. Rightfully so as well. I think a couple stoppage time minutes against Athletic Club is not enough for him to play this game. So unfortunately, Militao won't be starting centre back for this. But the question is Tchouaméni or Nacho. Rudiger's obviously going to be given the role to Mark Haaland, and I think the other guy is really difficult because the other guy is going to have to be in charge of tracking the runs, coming from guys in the midfield from the wings, and that's going to be the main thing. And therefore, I'm going to go for Nacho. I think Nacho's the natural centre back, and that's going to be huge because Tchouaméni, I think he's fantastic in the one-on-one, and I think he's fantastic at making great duels, but I think his tracking can be lax, and I think he does get a bit lazy at points, and I think that could be really pivotal in this game, especially if Phil Foden's trying to make a run in behind, if Bernardo Silva's trying to make a run in behind Jack Grealish, Julian Alvarez, all these guys trying to make a run in behind, and you've got Tchouaméni not tracking those runs, especially with Rudiger and Haaland trying to man mark. You've got to track those runs, and I think Nacho, although he's been really dodgy this season, and I think overall in a normal game I would put Tchouaméni here. I just think we need Tchouaméni in midfield as well, and I think therefore I'll go for Nacho here. But I'm really scared about that. Left back, I think Ferland Mendy can play this game. I'm not sure whether he was unfit last year or whether we were just preferring Camavinga at this point, but I think he was unhealthy and couldn't play this game last year, so that could be a huge addition for us to have 1v1 against Foden or Bernardo Silva, whoever plays on this right wing. Then the midfield. Now this is going to be a huge determining factor whether we win this game or not. I think for me, I would go for a midfield four of Tchouaméni, Toni Kroos, Fede Valverde and Jude Bellingham. I thought Fede is this week off is going to be huge for Fede in particular. Fede and Jude, I think, are going to be fantastic with this week off because they've looked at really tired without those games, and I think it's going to be huge for them to have a couple of days off, have a week off, and just relax, charge their batteries, and just play at their peak. Because I think Fede, he was starting to look a bit gassed. I think this is a nice game for him to come back to and put in a 10 out of 10 performance for Fede. No Camavinga, I think is fine. I think Camavinga as a super sub is perfect for this game. Toni Kroos, I think Kroos needs to be big for this game. I think, especially when in those periods where we do have the ball, we need to make the most of it. We need to try and play those incisive passes and try and get in. And then Jude Bellingham, to stress where we went wrong last year in the 4-0 battering from Manchester City, it was because we could not get out of our own half. We could not get out of our own half, and Vini and Rodrygo were largely isolated, and Benzema was largely isolated, and Benzema couldn't do any of the link-up play. He was injured. He couldn't really do much of that. And so, that was one place where we completely fell apart. We couldn't do anything. We were stuck and we couldn't get out. Vinny couldn't do anything because Kyle Walker was pinned onto him. So Jude Bellingham in this game is going to be huge to have that guy, that link between midfield and attack. And I think Jude Bellingham's shown that he can perform against Manchester City in the past. He had those 2 legs where he was truly fantastic with Borussia Dortmund, and Dortmund really unlucky not to go through in that case. When was it? Was it the season we won the Champions League where Jude Bellingham was truly fantastic that year against Man City, and he had that goal disallowed where he was kicked by Ederson and somehow it got disallowed. It was ridiculous when it happened, and it was ridiculous looking back at it in preparation for this. And I think Jude Bellingham's shown that he can be huge against Manchester City, and first time matching up against Haaland. I think Jude Bellingham is the key for us to have, and I think whether we win this game or not, it's going to be down to Jude Bellingham. There's no doubt about that in my mind. Then the front two, Vinicius Junior. He's had a week off. He's had 2 weeks off basically now. Hopefully, though, he's just 100% ready. My worry was that maybe he could be a bit, lacking sharpness, lacking match sharpness coming into this game. That was my biggest worry. But you just got to trust him. You've got to trust that Vinny's done the right preparation and got ready for this game. And we cannot stress how important it is, because last year he won that first leg for us. Well, he didn't win us for the first leg, but he got us a good result in the first leg of the 1-1, where he was fantastic. But Kyle Walker locked him down in the second leg. But I think this new profile from Vinny, I think, could be huge. And if you allow me to explain, I think last year Kyle Walker largely kept him down, largely kept him in that corner, because Vinny was restricted. He didn't really play in the middle, and he didn't go to the centre positions, and that caused him a lot of problems because he was restricted to the left wing and onto the touchline. And hugging the touchline as a winger, it can help you in a lot of ways. You can put a cross in, you can do all these things. If you can cook your man, then you've got a lot of open looks where you can try and find a guy or try and get a one-on-one with the goalkeeper. But if Kyle Walker has you in that position, well, there's not much you can do and you're isolated for large parts of the game. Well, Carlo Ancelotti's development tactic, where he's now put Vinny as this forward player, as this striker, on the left central position, where he can get in the midfield, or he can try and go through the centre. He can drift a little bit to the right if he needs to. He can go to the left, back to where he wants to go, or you can do all these different things. And although he did have problems at the start of the season, meshing to this new role, he looks fantastic. He's scoring plenty of goals in the last few games, and he just looks a new player. And I think, a lot of these times in these games, he's not going to have that 1-on-1 with Kyle Walker, and it's going to be against Ruben Diaz or John Stones, whoever he wants to have the pace match up with. Well, he can definitely cook them. No doubt about that. And therefore, I think, this kind of idea, I think this could be huge for us, especially with Jude Bellingham making those runs on the left as well. I think opening up that space from Vinny, and trying to drag some space open from Vinny, going through the centre, and then you hopefully have Jude coming in onto that left and trying to do something that way. So I think Vinny's new role is huge for this game. I think it could be pivotal for us. I think it could be overall really pivotal for us. Then Rodrygo was fantastic against Athletic Club. He showed us what he could do, and even in the international break, he was fantastic for Brazil. Scored some goals, and I think those two goals against Athletic Club were really well taken. And in that bad stretch of before the international break, you would have said Rodrygo probably would have hit those two shots straight into the goalkeeper, and I think a lot of fans have been criticising him. So I think hopefully he's gone back to the form where we need him to be, and he's going to be huge, because a lot of attention is going to be paid to Vinicius and Jude Bellingham. But if Rodrygo can step things up, then you're talking about the guy who's going to potentially win us the game. So that's what I think about Rodrygo. I think Rodrygo is going to be huge for this game, especially if he can be clinical. If he can be clinical in the Champions League like he normally is, then you're talking about a guy who can be genuinely pivotal for our chances in this game. So for me, I think we've got a great chance whenever we got this guy Rodrygo playing at his best form, and I think that's going to be genuinely huge, because last year, if you remember, he was largely anonymous in this game, and we couldn't really do anything because Rodrygo didn't offer us much in that game. So I just think when Rodrygo's playing at this form, you're happy, and you're overall you just want to see that. So I'm really happy with Rodrygo's form, and I think that could be huge for us in this game. And then the subs as well. Brahim Diaz has had an all-time season for himself. He's had a career high season, and that's been fantastic for him. He's been really good, and I think overall that energy, that passion off the bench could be huge for us, especially if we're going down, we're lacking a bit of energy, we're looking a bit lax, and we just don't have much. We're not offering much. Like we did in the Leipzig game, we're just not offering much to Man City. We're not offering much challenge. I think someone like Brahim Diaz can offer a bit of bite, a bit of that edge where we can try and attack Manchester City And then Joselu off the bench is going to be pivoted as well, especially if you're losing an aerial battle. If you want to try and just swing some crosses in late in the match, you're going to have to bring on Joselu, and I think Joselu can definitely help us in that way. In terms of what we need from this game, I mean, I think it's very obvious. We need to win. This is a game at the Bernabeu, first leg, second leg. We don't want to go to the Etihad without an advantage. You want to go into the second leg with at least a 1-goal advantage. You know, you have to win this game, and if we don't, I think you can say goodbye to your Champions League dream for this year, because we saw what happened last year with a 1-1 draw heading to the Etihad. We were just completely overruled in that game. So I think we need to win that game against Manchester City first leg, and then second leg, you just gotta hope that you can hold on and try and get things done. Especially if you got suspensions as well, you have to get things done in the first leg. You've got to get that win, and you've got to cause problems for Manchester City. No doubt about that in my mind. So that could be one thing. You've just got to play. You've got to play, because Man City are not as good as they were last year, but that doesn't mean they can't be, because, you know, this is Manchester City and they are one of the best teams in the world, if not the best team in the world on their day. And, you know, Real Madrid, we are fantastic and we are great, but we are still missing a number 9. We still have a lot of problems. You know, Manchester City can definitely expose them. So you've got to get that result first leg and just cause problems for Manchester City overall in that game. So that's pretty much what I've got to say. I mean, apart from that, you know, Real Madrid have never lost two consecutive Champions League games, Champions League ties against the same team. So, you know, you think back, we've never lost to Dortmund twice, we haven't lost to Ajax, Chelsea, Liverpool, wherever. We haven't lost to whoever twice in a row. And I think, well, I'll let you guys do the thinking for that one. But yeah, Real Madrid, hopefully we win this game. If we do, you know, anything can happen the second leg in the Etihad, and hopefully we win that game too. So that is it for today. I hope you guys have enjoyed. We'll be back with Manchester City review, depending on what happens in that game. But that is it for today. I hope you guys have enjoyed this preview of the game. Hopefully gave you some analysis. I don't know when I'll be dropping this. Maybe it'll be today on Saturday, maybe tomorrow, maybe just before the game, and we'll hopefully have the news that Kyle Walker won't be fit for that game. But I think that is it for today. I hope you guys have enjoyed. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys later. Bye bye.